The film begins by introducing a boy named Ji-ho, who has just lost his mother. At that moment, the 8-year-old Ji-ho believes that his mother has not passed away, but has merely gone to a faraway place in the land of clouds, an idea he got from a fairy tale book his mother used to read to him. The book tells the story of a mother penguin who died and went to the land of clouds. There, the mother penguin watches over her children and eventually returns when the rainy season arrives. Because of this, Ji-ho firmly believes that his mother will return like the mother penguin when the rainy season comes, so he eagerly awaits the rainy season by watching the weather forecast. On the other hand, Woo-jin, Ji-ho's father, has to raise him alone after the death of his wife, Soo-ah. As time goes by, Woo-jin lives his life without the presence of his beloved Soo-ah by working as a janitor at a swimming pool facility. Although he is often approached by a woman at his workplace, Woo-jin seems uninterested because he is still haunted by the memory of Soo-ah. He even refuses to be set up with anyone by his friend Hongo. Apparently, Hongo is a high school friend of Woo-jin and is considered like an uncle by Ji-ho. On the other hand, Ji-ho always visits Hongo's bakery after school, where he waits for his father to pick him up. Until one day, Ji-ho has to represent his class in a relay race that involves the participation of his father. This makes Ji-ho sad because he knows that his father can't participate in the race due to a health condition. Hearing this, Hongo tries to cheer him up and says that he will replace Woo-jin in the relay race. This makes Ji-ho happy, and eventually, Woo-jin comes to pick him up. After that, Ji-ho tells his father everything. Not long after, the day of the race arrived, but Ji-ho never expected that his father would come to participate in the race with him. During the race, Woo-jin's illness suddenly flared up. However, because Woo-jin loved Ji-ho so much, he ignored his illness. When Woo-jin was about to win the race, he suddenly fainted because he couldn't withstand the effects of his illness. On the way home, Ji-ho apologized to his father for causing him to faint. After that, Ji-ho said that the rainy season would arrive soon, and he was confident that his mother would come, just like in the storybook he used to hear. A few days later, the rainy season finally arrived, and Ji-ho was very happy. Full of excitement, he ran to the old train station not far from his house, accompanied by Woo-jin. At that moment, Ji-ho kept searching for his mother, and didn't want to go home despite Woo-jin's attempts to persuade him. After waiting for a long time, Ji-ho still couldn't find his mother, and Woo-jin eventually forced him to go home. On the way back, Ji-ho and Woo-jin suddenly saw a woman who had fainted in a train tunnel. As they rushed to help her, they were shocked because the woman looked exactly like Soo-ah. Seeing this, Ji-ho felt happy and was convinced that the woman was his mother, who had come from the land of clouds. Unfortunately, the woman's name was indeed Soo-ah, but she didn't remember anything, including memories of her husband and son. After that, Woo-jin took Soo-ah home. At home, Ji-ho kept saying that his mother had come from the land of clouds. Seeing this, Woo-jin became increasingly confused about what was really happening, and forbade Ji-ho from talking about the land of clouds, fearing that Soo-ah might leave them again. Since that day, Woo-jin became enthusiastic and hurried to finish his work, so he could come home early. The same went for Ji-ho, who couldn't wait to come home and play with his mother. At night, after Ji-ho had fallen asleep, Woo-jin told Soo-ah about how he first met her. It all began when they were in high school, and Soo-ah was a very intelligent classmate. However, Soo-ah was hard to approach for other students, while Woo-jin was a swimming athlete who only attended half-day classes, so they rarely talked to each other. Until one day, during swimming practice, Soo-ah suddenly started drowning, and Woo-jin, who saw this, immediately saved her. From that moment, Woo-jin began to like Soo-ah. Unfortunately, Woo-jin never dared to express his feelings to her, until Hongo found out that Woo-jin had feelings for Soo-ah. Hongo then gave Woo-jin advice on how to approach a woman, but every method suggested by Hongo failed. One day, during a dance class, Woo-jin and Soo-ah were paired by the teacher. Unfortunately, Woo-jin squandered the opportunity because he was so nervous that he ended up making Soo-ah's nose bleed. Since that day, they never spoke again until the last day of school, when Soo-ah suddenly approached Hongo and Woo-jin. At that moment, Soo-ah asked Woo-jin to write something in her yearbook as a keepsake. This made Woo-jin very happy, but after writing something, Woo-jin's pen was accidentally taken by Soo-ah, which made Woo-jin panic, although he was still too nervous to approach her. After graduating from high school, Woo-jin continued his studies at a nearby university to become a swimmer, while Soo-ah continued her education at a prestigious university in Seoul. As time went by, Woo-jin finally mustered the courage to call Soo-ah, accompanied by Hongo. But when the call was answered by Soo-ah, Woo-jin tried to hang up. Seeing this, Hongo stopped him, so Woo-jin ended up answering the call. Nervously and awkwardly, Woo Jin asked about the pen that Suah had taken that day. Fortunately, Suah responded positively and asked Woo Jin to meet her in front of her university the next day. After meeting with Suah, Woo Jin took her to a restaurant, and there they became a bit closer. When night fell and it started drizzling, Woo Jin mustered up the courage to say something to Suah. Unfortunately, she had already boarded the bus, and she said she wouldn't return until winter ended. Hearing this, Woo Jin quickly ran after her, causing the bus driver to stop. On the bus, Woo Jin asked if he could send letters to Suah. Hearing this, Suah smiled and wiped Woo Jin's wet face. Eventually, they started dating and began going out together. One day, while practicing swimming, Woo Jin suddenly fainted in the pool. The doctor who examined him said that Woo Jin had a brain problem, and if Woo Jin felt nervous or tense, he would immediately faint. Because of his illness, Woo Jin decided to quit being a swimmer, and he also ended his relationship with Suah without telling her what was really happening. For more than a year, Woo Jin tried to forget Suah. Unfortunately, he never succeeded, and eventually, Woo Jin decided to go to Seoul because he wanted to see Suah even if it was from a distance. Upon arriving, Woo Jin saw Suah being picked up by another man. This broke Woo Jin's heart, but he was also happy, realizing that he wasn't good enough for her. After that, Woo Jin considered everything to be over, until one day, Suah suddenly called him and asked Woo Jin to meet. Although feeling confused, Woo Jin decided to go meet Suah. When Suah got off the train, she immediately approached and hugged Woo Jin, saying that everything was predestined. Sometime later, Woo Jin eventually married Suah, and their first son, Ji-ho, was born. But when Ji-ho was 8 years old, Suah died due to an illness. This forced Woo Jin to become both a father and mother to Ji-ho, until Suah suddenly reappeared, although she had no memory of Woo Jin and Ji-ho. The next day, Suah found a storybook about a mother penguin that she used to read to Ji-ho. At that moment, Suah cried when she saw a documentary video of Ji-ho as a baby. Moreover, she realized that her time in this world was limited, so she began teaching Ji-ho many things, such as cooking eggs, washing clothes, cleaning the house, and even how to shampoo his own hair. Seeing this, Woo Jin felt very happy about his wife's return. But as Woo Jin grew more in love with his wife, he became worried that the rainy season would soon end, which would separate them again. That night, on Ji-ho's birthday, Woo Jin and Suah held a small celebration, where they both tried to appear happy in front of Ji-ho, even though they were actually sad, because Woo Jin knew that Suah would soon leave. After that, Suah asked Woo Jin to always take care of Ji-ho. She also said that if she returned to the land of clouds, she would always wait for him there. The next day, Ji-ho's school held an art performance event, but Ji-ho felt sad because he didn't see his parents there. Meanwhile, Woo Jin was unconscious after saving a coworker who was drowning in the swimming pool. On the other hand, Suah, unaware of this, kept trying to contact Woo Jin. After getting no response, Suah eventually went to Ji-ho's school without Woo Jin. Upon arriving, Suah saw Ji-ho singing with a sad face. After that, Ji-ho's classmates were asked to come forward one by one and talk about their strengths. Finally, it was Ji-ho's turn, but he looked confused. However, when Ji-ho realized that his mother had come, Ji-ho finally spoke about all the things his mother had taught him at home, which made Suah was moved to tears. After the art performance ended, Suah hurried away, as signs of the changing season had begun. Meanwhile, Ji-ho, who had just learned about this, ran home to look for his mother, but he couldn't find her. In the end, Ji-ho went to the tunnel to catch up with his mother. At that moment, Suah, seeing Ji-ho approaching, told him that it was time for her to go. Hearing this, Ji-ho suddenly apologized to his mother, saying that if he had not been born, his mother would not have gotten sick, and she could have lived longer with his father. Unexpectedly, Ji-ho had heard that the cause of his mother's death was her deteriorating health after giving birth. Upon hearing this, Suah tried to convince Ji-ho that what he was thinking was not true. Suah emphasized that his parents were very happy to have him, and they would never have experienced that joy if Ji-ho had never been a part of their lives. After that, Suah asked Ji-ho to take care of his father, as he had promised before. Meanwhile, Woo Jin was struggling to reach Suah, even though he was receiving medical treatment and his condition was still unstable. After giving his best effort, Woo Jin managed to catch up with Suah and Ji-ho in the tunnel. Not long after that event, Woo Jin and Ji-ho continued to live their lives well, as Suah had wished. Woo Jin, who initially worked as a janitor, was even promoted to a swimming instructor. One night, Woojin found a diary that Suah had written upon her return. In the diary, she recounted the first time she saw Woojin in a small alley. At that moment, it was raining, and Woojin deliberately closed his umbrella so that Suah could pass. From that moment on, Suah started liking Woojin, and she never expected that Woojin also had the same feelings for her. But whenever Suah had a chance to be alone with Woojin, for some reason, Suah always felt unlucky. She also wrote that she knew when Woojin saw her with another man in front of the university. Actually, that man was a classmate, and when Suah saw Woojin there, she immediately got out of her friend's car and ran to chase after him. However, Suah was suddenly hit by a car, which left her in a coma for weeks. When Suah woke up from her coma, she found herself in the train tunnel where Woojin and Jiho found her. At that moment, Suah couldn't believe that she had landed in her own future, where she was married to Woojin and had a child named Jiho. In reality, Suah was still young, having just turned 25. On the other hand, after parting ways with Woojin and Jiho in the tunnel, Suah returned to her previous state, waking up from her coma in a hospital after being in critical condition for 6 weeks. Since that incident, Suah was confused about making decisions, because if she chose to marry Woojin, it meant she only had 8 years left to live before she died. And if Suah chose to marry someone else, she might live longer, but there was no guarantee that she would be happy. In the end, after some contemplation, Suah decided to live with Woojin and accept her fate as Jiho's mother in the future. This decision was made when Suah called Woojin, and they met at the train station, exactly as Woojin had described before. The story then concluded. Moral lesson from the story: don't trust fairy tales to plan your family reunions, or you might end up waiting for a penguin in a tunnel. Remember, weather forecasts aren't invitations to the land of clouds. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a new video.